You have been in that room. The one where someone says almost nothing the entire time. No visible opinions, no reactions, no need to be acknowledged. And somehow, when it is over, you catch yourself thinking about them. Not the loudest person, the quiet one. You felt it before you understood it. That specific weight that comes from someone who does not need the room to know he is there. Most men spend their careers trying to build presence by increasing output. More words, more reactions, more visible effort. And the quiet man watches all of it, says nothing, because he already knows what that performance costs. You have worked alongside someone like this. Maybe you still do. He does not fight for airtime. He does not rush to fill pauses. He does not need the last word. And somehow, when a decision gets made, it tends to land closer to where he was sitting than where anyone else was standing. Machiavelli wrote it plainly. Everyone sees what you appear to be. Few really know what you are. The quiet man has learned to live in that gap. What appears, nothing much. What is everything? There are 7 reasons the quiet man is always the most dangerous one in any room. 7 things happening beneath the surface that most people never see until it is too late. First, and this one is already running every time you open your mouth in a room he is in. He is not listening to be polite. He is collecting everything you are giving away for free. You have been in a room where you said more than you meant to. Not because someone pressured you, because someone said nothing. And the silence felt like it needed filling. So you kept talking, clarifying things that did not need clarification, explaining a position that was already clear. And by the time you stopped, you had handed over information that was yours to keep. Most men think silence is neutral. It is not. It is a collection mechanism. Every time you react, you reveal a preference. Every time you explain yourself unprompted, you reveal an insecurity. Every time you perform confidence, you confirm the doubt underneath it. The quiet man gives none of this away. While everyone else is broadcasting their position, he is mapping the room. Who defers to whom? Who needs validation before they commit? Who looks at the door when the stakes rise? Who laughs too quickly at the wrong moment? This is not passive observation. This is reconnaissance. And by the time most men realize they have been mapped, it is already done. If you have ever left a conversation knowing you said more than you needed to, you already know what this costs. You handed him the manual. He did not ask for it. You gave it anyway. Sun Tzu commanded armies across ancient China without revealing his intentions until the last possible moment. His generals would receive orders only at the moment of execution, not days before, not hours before, at the moment. Because Sun Tzu had studied what happens when men know a plan in advance. They talk, they speculate, they leak, they reveal the plan to enemies through their own anxiety. He wrote, all warfare is based on deception, but what he practiced was deeper than battlefield deception. He collected information from every conversation, every patrol, every prisoner and merchant and passing traveler. He gave nothing back. His enemies knew he was coming. They never knew from which direction, at which hour, with what intention. He won 13 consecutive campaigns against opponents who often outnumbered him. Not because he was stronger, because he knew everything about them, and they knew nothing real about him. The quiet man is never just listening. He is building something you cannot see yet, and the longer you keep talking, the more complete his picture becomes. Most men in a room are trying to be understood. The quiet man is trying to understand. Those are not the same objective, and only one of them produces leverage. The second one is more uncomfortable, because it means his silence is not passive. It is a mechanism working on you right now. Think about the last time someone did not react to what you said, not disagreed, not challenged, just did not respond. Within seconds, you were adding more words, clarifying things that did not need clarification, softening a position you were certain about 3 seconds before. That is not weakness, that is biology. The amygdala reads unresolved silence as threat. It triggers the need to resolve, to explain, to justify, to make the discomfort stop. The quiet man does nothing except wait and lets your nervous system negotiate against itself. This is not accidental. This is a technique. When someone does not react, most people interpret it as judgment. And judgment creates the compulsion to defend. So they keep talking. They add context that was never asked for. They walk back positions that were fine where they were. They fill the space with information that was theirs to keep until the silence made it feel dangerous to hold. There is a version of this you have already lived. A conversation where you explained yourself to someone who never asked for the explanation, where you felt the pull to keep going even after the point was already made. That pull did not come from them. It came from the silence they refused to fill. Andrew Carnegie built the largest steel empire in American history by the time he was 50. People who negotiated with Carnegie described the same experience. He would listen to every proposal completely, then say nothing. Sit back, look at the ceiling, say nothing. Negotiators across the table would start talking again, offering concessions Carnegie had not asked for, improving their own offers without being pushed, explaining why their previous position was flexible when Carnegie had never challenged it. Carnegie himself said he learned this technique watching his first employer as a young boy. The man who speaks second in a negotiation almost always gets the better deal, because the first person to speak is the first person to show what they need. Carnegie would sit in silence so long that men would offer him terms they had sworn they would never accept. He paid less than anyone in the industry for decades, not because he fought harder, because he waited longer than anyone else was willing to. The next time someone gives you silence, let it sit. 5 seconds feels like a year. 10 seconds feels like the conversation is dying. Most people break before 15. Hold it. The one who breaks first has already moved to a weaker position. That is the entire gap. 3 seconds of discomfort most men are not willing to sit in. The man who holds silence longest controls the pace of everything that follows. 3. This is why he is impossible to outmaneuver. You have mapped everyone else in the room. His ceiling, you have never seen it. Most men signal their limits constantly. They argue loudest about the things they care about most. They go quiet exactly when stakes rise above their threshold. They react to specific things and not to others. Over time, this creates a readable map. Anyone paying attention knows exactly what you will and will not do, exactly where the real limit is, exactly what it takes to push you past it. The quiet man gives you no such map. You never see him at his maximum. You never see the edge of what he is willing to do, which means you can never calculate him. People do not fear what they can measure. They fear what they cannot. If you have been in a family dynamic where someone always seemed to know exactly how far they could push you before you would fold, you have experienced what a readable ceiling costs. They did not figure you out by accident. You showed them, consistently. Genghis Khan conquered more land than any ruler in history. His enemies consistently made the same mistake. They assumed they knew his limits. A city would surrender expecting mercy based on what previous cities received. They were wrong. Another city would resist expecting maximum brutality. They were also wrong. Genghis Khan had no fixed ceiling that anyone could identify. Some cities that fought received clemency. Some that surrendered were destroyed completely. His decisions followed a logic that was invisible to his enemies, which meant they could never develop a reliable strategy against him. Every city, every kingdom, every empire he faced had to make decisions with incomplete information about what he would actually do. That uncertainty paralyzed them before the first arrow was fired. His generals reported that enemies often defeated themselves in the deliberation before battle, unable to decide how to respond to a man whose ceiling they had never seen. Stop showing people where you stop. Not in anger, not with drama. Just stop letting every situation reveal the full extent of what you will and will not accept. The moment they know your edge, they know exactly how far they can go. The man whose ceiling no one has seen is the man no one can fully calculate. And the man no one can calculate is the man no one can fully control. Here is the fourth one. Two men can be equally quiet in the same room. One gets ignored. One makes everyone uncomfortable in a way they cannot explain. The difference has nothing to do with silence. It has everything to do with what the silence is sitting on top of. You have sat across from someone and known within minutes whether their quiet came from depth or from having nothing to say. You could not explain how you knew, but you knew, and you treated them completely differently because of it. The quiet man who has done the work, who has read, failed, observed, and rebuilt, carries a specific weight you can feel. Full silence has texture. It makes you want to earn a response. Empty silence just makes you wonder if they are bored. Most people can feel the difference even when they cannot articulate what the difference is. This means the work you do alone in private without anyone watching shows up in your presence in public without you ever mentioning it. The depth is not performed. It cannot be. Which is why it is so difficult to fake and so immediately recognizable when real. If you have ever been in a room with someone like that, you already know what it feels like to be on the other side of it. The feeling that you need to be more careful about what you say. Not because they said anything threatening, because something underneath their stillness made you aware of the weight of your own words. Abraham Lincoln was described by virtually everyone who met him as a man of extraordinary stillness. Not physical stillness, inner stillness. He would listen to advisors argue for hours, Secretary of War Stanton, Secretary of State Seward, men who despised each other and despised him. Lincoln would sit, listen completely, say almost nothing. His silence was so absolute in those moments that advisors would exhaust themselves arguing and eventually turn to him for a response. When he finally spoke, the room would go quiet, not because he commanded it, because everyone had spent the previous hour wondering what was behind the silence. Stanton, who had publicly called Lincoln a fool before working for him, described him in private letters as the most formidable man he had ever encountered in a room. Not the most intelligent, not the most aggressive, the most present. His stillness communicated something that his opponents could not counter, because it was not a position. It was a quality. You cannot argue with depth. You cannot strategize against it. You can only be affected by it. The work you do in private is not separate from the presence you carry in public. It is the source of it, and there is no shortcut to it. 5 explains why you still think about him after the room has cleared. He was not always there. That is exactly the point. You are the one who always shows up, always available, always responding, always present in every conversation. And somewhere along the way, you became the furniture. Not because you are unimportant, because you are always there. You stop noticing what is always present. The quiet man controls his visibility. He is not always in every room, not always available, not always responding within minutes. And this is not strategy in the cold, calculated sense. It is the natural result of being someone who has actual priorities and actual standards for where his attention goes. When he enters a room, it registers. Not because he makes an entrance, because his absence has created anticipation. Think about the people in your own life who carry the most weight over how you feel in a room. They are not the ones always performing. They are the ones whose attention feels like something worth having, precisely because it is not always there. Nikola Tesla worked in almost complete isolation for the most productive periods of his life. He did not attend conferences. He did not give interviews for years at a time. He did not explain his thinking to competitors. He simply disappeared into his laboratory and emerged with things that changed the world. When Tesla did appear publicly, the effect was disproportionate to his physical presence. Journalists wrote that a single Tesla appearance generated more column inches than 100 appearances by men who were everywhere constantly. Edison, who was everywhere, eventually became the man who had always been there. Tesla, who was almost never visible, became the man whose next appearance was an event. The scarcity was not calculated. It was the natural result of someone who genuinely preferred the work to the performance. But the effect was undeniable. Stop being everywhere. Stop commenting on everything. Stop responding to things that do not require your response. Be somewhere that matters. Make the appearances you do make count by making them selective. The man who is in every room is the man whose presence in any one room means nothing. The man who is selectively present makes every appearance mean something. This is 6, and the one most men get wrong. Most men wait because they have no choice. He waits because he knows what happens to the man who moved too soon. Speed is overrated in most situations that actually matter. The man who moves first is usually the man who could not tolerate the discomfort of waiting, who mistook urgency for strategy, who confused action with progress. Most conflicts resolve themselves if you do not accelerate them. Most opponents exhaust themselves if you do not give them a clear target. Most situations shift naturally toward the patient man simply because he is still standing when everyone else has burned out. If you have ever watched someone blow up a good position by moving before the moment was right, you have already seen what impatience costs. Not in theory, in the actual result. The deal that collapsed, the confrontation that went wrong, the opportunity that disappeared because someone needed to act before the situation was ready. John D. Rockefeller built Standard Oil into the most dominant company in American history using one principle above all others. Wait until your competitors are in trouble, then move. While rivals built refineries aggressively, Rockefeller improved his quietly. While they expanded into new markets quickly, he strengthened his existing position methodically. When competitors hit downturns and needed cash, Rockefeller was always ready to buy. Not because he planned their downturns, because he had positioned himself to benefit from whatever happened. He said privately that his greatest advantage was that he was never desperate. He could wait for the right price, the right moment, the right circumstance. Most of his competitors could not. They needed to move to grow to show results now. Rockefeller simply needed to outlast them. By the time he was done, he controlled 90% of American oil refining. Not because he was the most aggressive, because he was the most patient. The next time you feel the pressure to move, ask yourself one question. Is this urgency real? Or is it discomfort I have not learned to sit with yet? Those two things feel identical from the inside. They produce completely different outcomes. The patient man does not wait because he has no other option. He waits because the calculation says not yet. The man who can outlast the discomfort of waiting always ends up in the position of the man who could not. 7. Last one. Everything above compounds here. When he finally speaks, the room does not just listen. It stops. You have been in a meeting where someone said almost nothing for an hour. And when they finally opened their mouth, everyone went quiet before the first word landed. Not because they commanded it, because the silence before it had built expectation that no one could explain, but everyone felt. This is the return on everything built in silence. When a man who rarely speaks finally says something, the room shifts before the words even land. Not because what he says is always brilliant, because everyone has been waiting to understand what is behind the silence. The quiet man has built curiosity without spending a single word. When he chooses to spend one, it has been earning interest since the last time he used one. Compare this to the man who fills every silence, who has a reaction to every moment, who needs others to witness his reasoning in real time. His words cost nothing. Because everyone knows more are coming, there is no scarcity, there is no weight of selection. Fyodor Dostoevsky spent 4 years in a Siberian prison camp. Hard labor, near-death conditions, complete isolation from intellectual life. When he returned and began writing again, his contemporaries noted something extraordinary. Every word he chose landed with impossible weight, not because his vocabulary had expanded, because the silence of 4 years had compressed everything he knew into something dense and precise. He wrote The Brothers Karamazov in his 50s. After a lifetime of suffering, imprisonment, poverty, and illness, every sentence carried the weight of everything he had survived. Readers described his work as entering a room where someone who had seen everything finally decided to speak. The silence of his suffering made every word heavy. He could not have written what he wrote without having been forced into that silence first. The quiet man's words are expensive. People assign them weight before they have even processed the content. In the next room you walk into, say, less than feels comfortable. Not because you have nothing to offer, because what you withhold builds exactly the kind of weight that no amount of talking can manufacture. Let them wonder. Let them build their own picture of what is behind your stillness. Their imagination will always give you more authority than your words could. A dog that bites does not bark. The bark is fear. The quiet man already knows the ending. He is simply waiting for everyone else to catch up. A man sits at the far end of a long table. The meeting has been going for an hour. He has said 4 words. Every person in the room has glanced toward him at least once. No one can tell you exactly why. They just know that when he finally moves, the room will move with him. He is not waiting for his turn. He already knows how this ends. He has known for a while. 7 reasons. None of them require you to be louder. None of them require you to perform more. All of them require you to stop doing things that feel productive, but are costing you more than they return. Stop filling silence that was not yours to fill. Stop explaining decisions that have already been made. Stop showing the ceiling to people who are using it to calculate how far they can push. Stop being present everywhere so that your presence somewhere actually means something. The quiet man is not dangerous because he is cold. He is dangerous because there is something real underneath the stillness, something that took time to build, something that cannot be faked. The people around you already know which version of this you bring into a room. The question is whether the next room you walk into will see something different. If something in this shifted how you carry yourself into the next conversation, the subscribe button is there.